We had a potential preview of a second round playoff series, much to the chagrin of many. Plus, the Jack Hughes Jolt leads the Devils in the Hudson River rivalry, also kind of to my chagrin. We'll break all that down, plus 4 total games requiring the 3-on-3. Some took a little bit more than that across 6 games in the NHL on tonight's edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome everyone into Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network around. We're thrilled to have you all with us. Reminder that you can like, subscribe, and follow all of our shows on YouTube. The show is available at your preferred podcasting platform as well. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. I am a professional play-by-play primarily in the college and high school scene. I write about hockey for a website called Yardbarker. You can check out, I put something up today about the 5 biggest surprises across the league, and I host a sports radio show here in my home state of West Virginia that at the moment I'm not hosting because the high school state basketball tournament has taken me off the air for 2 weeks, which I'm not going to lie to you. I always enjoy the break. TJ Shalad is with me, professional hockey play-by-play extraordinaire, and he's picked up some new sports this year as well, including some of hockey's grassy cousins like lacrosse. TJ, what's up, man?
This was a fun night, man. I love the 3-on-3 overtime. I know a lot of people hate it. I also like the shootout, which I know a lot of people hate. So this was a lot of fun for me tonight.
Yeah, the thing is that it's like there isn't a better solution. Like I'd be willing to see if like 4-on-4 for 10 minutes or something along those lines might work. But at day's end, we're still talking about regular season games. There isn't really a better solution. So it's one of those things where it's like, do I love that we're deciding games this way? No, but at the same time, there is not a better answer, in my opinion.
Yeah, not without being gimmicky, and that's just going to kind of water down everything. So I love it. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. My only complaint, and I still, this will be for another day, and believe me, we're going to have a couple shows next week where we could probably have a grab bag of topics to talk about thanks to nights with only 1 and 2 games next week. But my only complaint would be I don't like the extra point. Obviously I think if an overtime win is worth 2 and an overtime loss is worth 1, logically a regulation win should be worth 3. Yeah. But alas, here we are. That's not the craziest thing Gary Bettman has going on. We'll talk about that here, and naturally got to start with Dallas and Colorado. Brilliant game. Hated to see it end. And it was so good. And I say this, did I hate seeing it end in overtime in the shootout? Yes, but there's a really good chance we're going to get 6, maybe 7 of these in the playoffs coming up. So, like, I'm kind of thinking I could probably I could live with the way tonight went down because I think we're going to probably see this one again. Dallas won this one in the shootout, and that gave them the extra goal, so they take it by a final tally of 2-1 goals from Cale Makar and Jason Robertson, and then Wyatt Johnston gets the shootout goal. That's it. That's all you're scoring in this one. Big nights for the goaltenders. It was a huge duel between Jake Oettinger and Scott Wedgewood, and Jake Oettinger had, I'd love to get your take on this. They called it the abracadabra save, where he had the puck in his sleeve. Fantastic.
Yeah, that was the abracadabra save is beautiful for what that was. And even the defenseman, I mean, I'm thinking about just overtime in general. I mean, this is not one of those games, you're a little bummed that it ends in the shootout, but it's not because both teams were just playing with their foot off the gas and just wasting time and trying to get to the shootout. I mean, it was fire wagon hockey, back and forth, odd man rushes, D-men laying out, blocking, shooting lanes, goalies making big stops. I mean, Otter made a save that the rebound ended up being a pass that worked as an outlet, and the Stars went the other way. I mean, it was just a really fun game, especially in overtime, because honestly, the first 60 was very tight. It was clamped. I mean, both teams were playing playoff hockey. They were afraid to make that mistake, and this absolutely felt like a future playoff series. And if we are lucky enough to get it, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and here's the one thing I can say about how stupid the playoff format is, and I say that I don't really mean that. I'll get to it in a second. Even if the playoff format were different, we would still need these two teams to beat respective opponents to theoretically get to either a second or round or conference final. I think my bigger issue is that look, I still think Dallas is going to have a hard time overtaking Colorado. This was one they probably needed in regulation if they wanted a realistic shot at winning the division. It's not mathematically impossible, obviously, but one of the things we know about this league, it's really hard to make up 2 points when you also have played one more game than your opponent. It's really hard to do that at this point in the season. There just aren't a lot of games left. If Colorado just plays pretty much the way they've played all season, it'll be Dallas will almost have to be perfect to overtake them. It will be hard. But the reward for being the second best team in the NHL should not be the fourth best team in the NHL. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I miss the days of when it was, 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 5-4. That was always, the most fun in my mind. It's tough the way that it's laid out here. I mean, right now, who would they end up taking? If the playoffs were to start today, I believe they have Edmonton.
Who, Colorado? That's a good question.
No, Dallas.
Actually.
I think.
Dallas would have Minnesota. They would have Minnesota.
That's tough. I mean, that's tough, but it's one of those things where, that's just the way it is, and you got to kind of battle through it. I think they could take Minnesota. Obviously, they have a 6-point edge on them right now in the standings, and Minnesota is certainly been a little bit hot, but I think Dallas is a more well-rounded team. All depends on their goaltending. That's the one thing that Minnesota has the edge on in that regard. But, in this one, you just set out to get those 2 points, especially because you are clawing down to the very final game. Try and get those 2 points. It's a bummer if you're Dallas that this one, ended in the shootout and your opponent did get the one. We talked about this last night. I mean, was just if you were a Dallas fan, the one thing you didn't want is this game to go into overtime and your opponents get that extra point. So they're still separated by 2. But I thought Dallas looked pretty darn good. I thought Colorado looked good. I mean, look, the playmakers came to play today. Cale Makar, Justin Robertson, both goaltenders were phenomenal. Oettinger gets the 33 saves in the contest and deserves a win. He's going to be a big key piece for them in the playoffs. How much of a workload does he get is going to be a big question, something I'm curious to see how it plays out, and how does he play with that workload? And if he does get time off, is Casey DeSmith going to be able to maintain? I know he's had a good season this year, but this is a totally different beast in the playoffs.
Yeah. One quick note on the format here. So obviously we know the nature of this, that, if you finish second in your division, it's really, I know they use the word division. It's really like having 4 conferences in the NHL at this point is really the way it seems to be done, but that's not how the NHL terms it, so it makes it even more ridiculous. But the one thing I'll also note here is that this format is already problematic enough, but I mentioned to you earlier today, I was doing some research on this. So there have been 4 96-point teams who have never who have not made the playoffs in this format. And right now we're potentially on pace to have a 98-point team, which has never happened before. All 4 of those teams, it's been under this format. So 96 has only happened under this ridiculous format. I think that there's an argument to make at a certain point that this is just not fair to these teams. It's not fair to these players. And I understand why. I think the first round of the NHL playoffs has a little bit of a March Madness vibe to it. When you're going from good game to good game, like I do understand the appeal of that, but you do have to kind of balance as well with the fairness issue. And I think that's a huge concern for me, because I don't know that it's fair to guys you're asking to put their bodies on the line for what's soon to be an 84 game season and then say, well, but we're not going to, even though you would have been in any other format good enough to make the playoffs, you're not in this one.
Yeah, especially when you look at the Central versus the Pacific right now. The Central playoff teams right now, Colorado 98, Dallas 96, Minnesota 90. And then you look at the Pacific, Anaheim's number 1 with 78, Edmonton's 2, 77, Vegas 76. That is a stark contrast. And I know you want to award the division winners, right? You want to make sure that the teams who win their division, regardless of points total, regardless of points percentage, if they win their division, they should get an automatic bid into the playoffs. That's fine. And I'd be even fine with the top two teams in each division getting the automatic bid. But after that, I think the final four teams, then it needs to be solely based on points from there, regardless of the division. So if you want to, how that would look would be different every single year. I think it adds in some new teams, but it changes everything entirely. And I also think seeding should be played into that as well. If you are third place in your division, but you end up getting the third of the, let's call them wild card spots. Let's say you open that up to 2 division winners and then 2 second place teams and then 4 wild cards. I think you have to reseed based on how that is structured, and it makes for a lot more competitive hockey.
One more game to get to before we get to break. The Devils and Rangers in one of several games of the night that was fairly drunk. The Rangers led briefly in this game, 1-0, and never led again. They immediately took a penalty off essentially the ensuing face-off, off scoring that first period goal. They got outshot, I think, 17-2 in the first period. The first period was bad enough for the Rangers. The Devils get a multi-point night from Jack Hughes, who had kind of his Animal House moment in this one where he said he's not giving up on the season, and you can tell that that's true from these Devils. Yes, they are a mathematical long shot, but I understand why they're not really willing to give up on the season. The Devils didn't really sell. If you look at what their front office did, they actually chose, as we talked about on yesterday's show, they kind of bought a little bit. At the deadline. They are trying to win hockey games because you've got jobs that are on the line, both on the ice, on the bench, and in the front office.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this last week, was simply this is the way the Devils expected to be playing all year long. They expected to be getting goals and contributions from Nico Hischier. He's only got 24 on the year. I say only, but still, you're expecting your captain and a former number 1 overall pick to have more than 24 goals on the season. They're finally getting Timo Meier going. He's got 19 now. Yeah. Jack Hughes, he's been hurt. He's got 18, but Jesper Bratt, he's been there pretty much all season, had a couple of minor injuries. He's only got 16, but he contributed in this game, and all of them have been contributing in their last handful, which is kind of, this is what they expected from this team. It's just that they haven't gotten it up until this point when it's too little too late, but they're trying to save jobs, as you mentioned. I know that the guys in that locker room are looking around and going, guys, if we lay an egg for the rest of the season, we're going to see our GM gone, possibly our coach gone, because when a new GM comes in, they usually like to bring in their own guy. And I'm sure they don't want that. As much as we see that as a success story with Buffalo, I'm sure New Jersey doesn't want to see that happen. So guys are starting to kind of wake up a little bit here. They're starting to have those multiple point nights, and the offense is starting to rise to the top the way it was supposed to at the start of the season. This Jersey team, in my mind, is kind of the antithesis of Pittsburgh. This is a team that, had much higher expectations that just failed to live up to them this year, a la Pittsburgh having low expectations and battling their way and being one of the better teams in the Metro.
I like that with the Dubas Keefe connection there as well. That's a good little mirror image of one another, or inverse image of one another. One quick note, both goalies kind of stunk in this game. Jacob Markstrom stops 15 of 18. I think he had allowed 2 goals on his first 3 shots. Now, granted, that was over a period of about 25 minutes, but 2 goals on his first 3 shots, locked it down a little bit later. Jonathan Quick stopped 33 of 39, and he had moments of brilliance in this one. He let up 2 that he probably would want back. How about this for a stat real quick? Jonathan Quick, what's likely going to be his final season of his career, 5-16-2. I'm not saying that the Rangers' backup goalie has been the issue. He had to bear the brunt of when both Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin were out, and the Rangers played their worst hockey of the year. But no question that is an issue anytime. 11 games under 500 is way too much for a backup goalie.
Yeah, and I think you're right. This is just kind of signaling the end of his career. He's had a stellar career. He's got a couple cups under his belt. So, he's just not the guy that he used to be. And like you said, he was in an unfortunate situation there when Shesterkin went down. Fox goes down. That stretch from, pretty much end of November to right around the Olympic break was just god-awful for the Rangers. And that's what kind of made their season. I think that's when, the decisions were made that they were going to retool, as we saw that announcement come out from the top brass. So, It's tough for him, but at the end of the day, he's had a great career, nothing to really hang his head about, and just kind of roll off into the sunset knowing that you've got your name on the cup.
There was still a drunker game than this one. We're going to get to that coming up. Carolina and Pittsburgh was a lot of fun. Well, that and much more coming up on the other side of this break. And I don't know what we will call St. Louis Calgary. I don't think drunk is the right word for it, but boy, was it was silly. We can go with that for now. We're back in a moment. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action so that when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, so a couple of games to get to here in this segment. Reminder, though, you should sign up for our Everydayer Club. You still got a chance to get involved with our March Madness brackets, compete against TJ, compete against me, compete against pretty much all the Locked On hosts, and with a chance for you to take home $100 in Locked On merch. Just use the code MARCH, and you'll get your first month free, and you'll be able to sign up before the NCAA tournament tips to tomorrow, which, again, whenever you're listening to this or watching this, Thursday at noon, you'll be able to compete against us in those brackets. So check that out. All right. Carolina and Pittsburgh, TJ, maybe the drunkest game of the night, a 6-5 final in overtime. This game, here's the crazy part. I think they only changed the lead in this game 3 times. Carolina took the initial lead. Pittsburgh took a 5-4 lead late, and then the winning goal would be the third lead change. So for a game with 11 goals, it kind of felt like there'd be more, but there were an awful lot of moments where this game was tied back and forth. 3-point night for Erik Karlsson. Really, really good night for Ben Kindle. He scored his 17th of the year. What a revelation he has been for the Penguins. Sidney Crosby scores in his return, but ultimately it's Carolina getting contributions just up and down the lineup. Logan Stankoven with a goal in this one. Taylor Hall had a couple of points in this one. Jackson Blake had a couple of points in this one. And then defensemen Keandre Miller and Sean Walker scored the last 2 goals for Carolina. Big goals from Carolina's blue line. I haven't loved the way Carolina has played of late, but you'll take 2 points against the team that's directly chasing you in the division standings anytime.
Yeah, when I was watching this game and I saw the first goal of the game, which was the shorthanded goal by Jordan Martinook, and Jordan Staal's coming up the boards out of the defensive end, banks the puck off the boards to lead Martinook on a breakaway. After he scored, I was like, oh, we're going to have one of those games, because this is a knock hockey type pass off the boards, which he angles perfectly. I'm like, okay, well, that just kind of set the tone for the chaos that we were going to see. But Carolina did play very well, and they kind of needed that. They hadn't been answering the bell as of late. They were a little wonky in their last couple games. So it's good to see that they can kind of get back on the horse. And it's good for Pittsburgh. I mean, just when you look at the standings, Pittsburgh's now 8 points behind. There were 7 points going into this one. Everybody is still kind of wondering, when we talked about it last segment about how Pittsburgh is clearly outplaying expectations. Everyone's, I think, kind of wondering, when's it going to give? When is the Pittsburgh that we expected going to show up? I don't know if it is. I mean, they just went toe-to-toe with the top team in their division, 11 goals. It was a little sloppy, a little messy, not anything that either of these goaltenders want to put on their resume as a solid victory or a solid loss for that matter. It's just a matter of both of these teams playing really well and Pittsburgh not giving in. I think they could be spoilers in the first or second round if they make it that far and knock off one of these teams that maybe everybody is kind of high and mighty on. So keep an eye on Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and this feels like a curtain call in certain respects. So I think that there's going to be a real push here for the Pittsburgh Penguins one way or another. And again, some of the youth. It's funny how the contributions just continue to come from everywhere. The veterans, the young players, guys who are sort of journeymen like Anthony Mantha having a huge season for them. It is funny how that has kind of worked, and still. Even when they've played sort of these high event games, they're finding ways to come away with points. This was the end of a long road trip. Crosby joins them for the end of it. And that's, honestly, the fact that they survived without Crosby as long as they did is a pretty big indicator of where they are as well. So I'm with you on that. Let's give Zach Martin of Locked On Carolina Hurricanes the last word on this game.
What a game in Raleigh. The Hurricanes win 6-5 in overtime. Bunch of milestones this night. Jackson Blake scoring his 20th goal of the season, his first time hitting 20 goals in his career. Sebastian Aho, 700 points with the primary helper on the game winner from Sean Walker. Hurricanes are 8 points clear of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and just another crazy game. But like I said, Blake, 3 points. Nikolai Ehlers, 3 points, all assists, and just an overall great game. Another one where it's super close. And, if these two teams meet up in the second round of the playoffs, it'll be a crazy 7 games for sure. But overall, big win for the Hurricanes. They're now 43, 19, and 6.
Not completely out of the question they could meet in the first round based on the way the Islanders and the Jackets are playing at the moment. If anybody stumbles, all of a sudden you could find yourself in that second wild card spot, which, by the way, could mean you're playing Buffalo, not Carolina, so or Tampa Bay for that matter. So there's very much nothing settled, it feels like, in the Eastern Conference, other than we know who most of the teams are going to be. I think we have an idea that there are 9 teams probably who are going to finish with these 8 spots, and we don't really know the order outside of knowing that Carolina is probably going to win the Metropolitan Division. So a lot to get settled here in the next couple of weeks here. One team that had a chance earlier in the season to really be a part of this was the Philadelphia Flyers. They have not played good enough hockey of late. Now, I think under different circumstances, we would be talking about this win tonight as a defining moment potentially for the Tocchet era, as they win on the road at Anaheim, late night start. They get the overtime win in kind of a goofy way, and they gave up the lead in the process and still managed to find a way to get 2 points. They are not out of it, but I would describe them at this point as a long shot. Certainly their best shot feels like it's going to be that number 3 spot in the Metropolitan Division. They're still looking like that's going to be mathematically very, very difficult to accomplish. Let's start with Rachel Donner of Locked On Philadelphia Flyers. Then you and I can kind of break this down a little bit.
The Philadelphia Flyers kicked off their California adventure with a dramatic overtime win versus the Anaheim Ducks. Hi, I'm Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. This rivalry between the Flyers and the Ducks has been one of the more fun developments since the whole Carter Gauthier thing went down. This game, the Flyers came out swinging in more ways than one, dominating the early action and scoring chances, but without converting on the power play, with opportunities to widen that lead over the Ducks. And who else but Cutter Gauthier himself cut the lead to 1 as the Ducks do convert on one of their power plays, and then they tie it up late in the third, of course. But the Flyers were hemmed in all period, so that goal kind of seemed like it was just going to happen. But the fast pace of this game continued into overtime, where Noah Cates sealed the win on that fluky goal banked off of Dostal. But goal's a goal, a win's a win, and the official review notwithstanding and making it about him, making that dramatic announcement. We'll talk more about this game on our Thursday show.
All right. Hope if anyone else had technical difficulties, apologies there, but you think you got the general nature of what Rachel Donner was talking about. So Philadelphia, by the way, and this is a good example of this, if they played in the Pacific Division,
exactly,
would be fighting for the division crown at the moment. So like, I don't look at this Philadelphia team and they're definitely not a bad team, right? They have, I think, post break played in a way that I was not expecting them, because I thought it was time to fade them just 2 weeks ago. And they have really played much better hockey of late. And the other part of that is Dan Vladar, a guy who I know you and I have been praiseworthy of as a goaltender. I expressed my concerns about him being a number one. He has really used the 3-week break. He didn't play a ton, if I recall correctly. He did play some, but he didn't play a ton. I think he maybe averaging a game a week in those Olympics. I think that was useful for Dan Vladar, because this is a guy who's not accustomed to playing 40 plus games, which he now has. And he, with his season, has got Philadelphia in position here to have a shot. It's a long shot, but it's not a no shot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as an older goaltender, as a guy that's been around, not only the NHL, but the AHL, ECHL for quite some time, he's 28, so he's not that old, but he's played a lot of hockey. You got to take every little bit that you can get, and he's been playing stellar. He was 34 of 36 in the game tonight, and this was another one where that overtime was just odd man rush after odd man rush, and D-men getting in those passing lanes, blocking shots. It was chaotic for that goal at the very end. Ultimately, Noah Cates scores from below the goal line, banks it in off the skate blade of Lucas Dostal, who was kind of down on his stomach. They reviewed it. It was a good goal. Ultimately, one of those things where this is a game that I don't think Philadelphia, they're very lucky to have won. And what I mean by that is not only the puck luck that they get on the goal itself, but also you're up 2-0 in this game. You allow Anaheim to come back. You allow Leo Carlsson to score with less than 2 minutes to go in regulation and force overtime. Normally, the hockey gods do not smile on you when you give up those kind of opportunities. I was watching this game and I was just like, it's only a matter of time before Anaheim gets this win, whether it's in overtime or if we go to the shootout. Even though Philly is extremely good in the shootout, I was like, I guarantee you that the Ducks probably pull this one out, just because they played hard, and Philly had every opportunity and kind of let Anaheim hang in. Usually you don't pull out these wins, but good on Philly, because they have been playing better. They've been real hot as of late. They've got wins in 5 of their last 6 games that have gone into overtime, and they're picking up points. And unfortunately, they don't play in the Pacific Division.
Yeah. Our final segment is the history division. We'll get more on that coming up in just a moment here on Locked On NHL Game Night. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late night West Coast shootouts, there is always action on the board. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits. You can mix the spreads, totals, player props, and match how you see the slate playing out. Apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's March Madness, baby. It's your parlay, your style, and now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. 2 games still to get to. The one felt like a must-win. There was a little bit of history made in this game, by the way. Felt like a must-win for the Ottawa Senators. They have been playing much better lately, and this one they fell a little bit flat in. Granted, 2 empty net goals late to ultimately fall 4-1 to the Washington Capitals. Let's start with Brandon Pillar of Locked On Ottawa's Senators, and then we'll talk a little bit about the history side of things.
After a perfect weekend at home, the Ottawa Senators let 2 points slip away on the road. I'm Brandon Pillar from the Locked On Senators podcast, and the Sens were in Washington up against the Capitals, and they lose 4-1. The score looks worse than it actually was. 2 of those goals empty netters, including one of them Cole Hudson's first NHL career goal. Seems like everyone gets their first against the Sens, but really, this was one where the Sens got goalied. Logan Thompson played amazing. Sens outshot the Caps 35-25, dominated in the face-off dot. They scored one late with the goalie pulled, but it was too little too late, and they don't get an opportunity to make up ground in the standings in this tight Eastern Conference wildcard playoff race. We'll talk about this game more in the postcast and, of course, in tomorrow's episode of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Tough one there for Ottawa, as there is really no point you can allow to get away at this point in the season when you're fighting for one of those last playoff spots. Alex Ovechkin makes history, tying the record for most 25-goal seasons. And were it not for the 56-game shortened season in 2020-2021, he would likely already have the record, as he scored 24 goals in 45 games in that season. There aren't that many records left for Alex Ovechkin, but kudos to him. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable, remarkable level of consistency. And I know that we've said that a bunch because he was chasing the record, and now he's not, but it's wild that there are still things that he can achieve, statistically speaking.
922 total goals in his career. I mean, that is just incredible. It's insane. You almost want him to play another year or two just to see, can he get to 1,000? But he's also a great teammate. I mean, when Cole Hudson, he scores an empty netter, not how you always imagine your first goal, right? Like you want it to be some kind of sick dangle and you beat the goalie and the place goes nuts. You don't necessarily want your first goal to be an empty netter. I'm sure Cole Hudson's not complaining about that, but the first guy there to give him a hug along the glass was Alex Ovechkin, which I'm sure a lot of people saw this stat. It's still mind-blowing to me that Cole Hudson is the first player that Alex Ovechkin has ever played with in his career that was born after Ovechkin made his debut in the NHL. That is insanity. And every time I see Cole Hudson, I think of the meme with George Bush. Sir, there's another Hudson in the NHL. That's kind of what I think of. But when you look at this game, Washington, they get outshot 35, or I'm sorry. They're outshot 35-25. They're held to 7 shots in the first, 5 shots in the third. Ottawa did everything they could, and it's not like Linus Ullmark had a bad game either. I mean, he played very strong. This was just a game that Ottawa willed themselves to victory, and of course, as everybody kind of said, it does look worse on the score sheet than it really was in the game. This was really a 2-1 final if you want to give it a 3-1 final for one empty netter. It's just those 2 empty netters make it look worse.
Yeah, I will say this for Washington. I think, and I have said this before, I think that they are likely a bounce back candidate for next season. I know we talked about this yesterday, the little rant I went on. I don't think there's any reason to look at this Washington team and think that they are now going to be permanently bad again, right? Like this is not the start of the decline. I think this is just a good team who wasn't healthy much of the year, and they are in a very large NHL middle class where right now the most important thing that you can be is healthy for as long as possible. And the Capitals dealt with numerous injury issues all season, particularly down the middle. Guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois were not consistently in the lineup. So Washington gets a win, and I'll be curious to see how they finish the season, but more curious to see what they decide to do in the offseason, because I think, if anything, this should look kind of like what it did 2 years ago when they kind of went on a spending spree. That's kind of what they should do here.
Yeah, and they're still young. Even if you take Ovechkin out of the picture next year, you've still got some veterans like Tom Wilson, but you've got a lot of young guys. Alexei Protas, Connor McMichael, Justin Sordiff, Ethan Frank. There's still a lot of guys that are just primed and ready for their breakout years. And eventually they're going to hit, and they might hit all at once, and that could be next year.
All right, let's the other history-making game tonight. So the St. Louis Blues became only the second team that, and this is not official. This is there was a reporter who was combing through this and posted on Twitter/X that the Blues tonight became only the second team in NHL history to successfully challenge not 1, not 2, but 3 goals and get them all overturned. And in perfect hubris, they still lost this game 2-1 in a shootout with Devin Cooley having a big day for the Flames, stopping 25 of 26. Joel Hofer, really nice day for him, stops 30 of 31. If that's the type of goaltending the Blues had been getting all year from a certain other goaltender, they'd probably be in the playoff race right now. Goals from Connor Zary and Dylan Holloway in this one, and then the shootout won by Calgary 2-0. So Battle of the Tank. It's a 2-1 win for Calgary. St. Louis still gets a point. You kind of hate that if you're a Blues fan. The last thing you want, if you're going to lose, that's fine. Let's lose in regulation.
Yeah, absolutely. Battle of the Tank, like you said. It's so tough being a St. Louis Blues fan if you're a St. Louis Blues fan. I mean, you're playing the second worst team in the conference. I mean, I don't even know where they rank compared to the Eastern Conference here. Yeah, they are the They're the second worst team in the league in general. You are right on 3 challenges and you still lose. I mean, it's so tough being a Blues fan. I think though, when you talk about some other goaltender, I wonder how this team would look in an alternate universe where that goaltender was dealt this past offseason. And the Blues goaltending room is Joel Hofer and Colton Ellis, because those were the 2 guys that they had coming up through the American Hockey League in Springfield at the same time. And they let Ellis walk, who is now the number 3 in Buffalo. And he's just kind of there helping Alex Lyon and helping UPL kind of work their way through and jumping in when they get hurt. But he's certainly shown that he's capable. And I sit there and I wonder, man, if they could have maybe dealt Binnington, of course, hindsight is always, 2020. But if they dealt him in the offseason, got some draft capital, maybe got a player or 2, I think that, Colton Ellis would have been a fine number 2 behind Joel Hofer. And maybe this team wouldn't be, top 5, top 6 lottery pick area. But it's just tough being a Blues fan. This game was perfect example of that.
He was one of the best goaltenders down the stretch after the Four Nations face-off last year in Jordan Binnington, but it's also one of those reasons why it's very easy to fall prey to small sample sizes and hot streaks, and you see then what he has done this year. And again, 2 goaltenders, and one of them is a slightly better than 900 goaltender playing basically roughly the same number of games, and the other one is in basically 870 goaltender. I think that says plenty. If you want to say, okay, the Blues have played a little worse for whatever reason on nights when Binnington's in net, it's not 3 percentage points worse. It's not that. That's a lot of extra goals given up. So I am with you. There's $6 million in cap space that the Blues are burning a hole on right now in a guy who just is not a starting goaltender right now. That might be the biggest thing for the Blues to address this offseason, but we can talk about that more, I'm sure, on another show. Want to thank everybody for tuning into Locked On NHL Game Night. We're back on Monday. Tomorrow, it's going to be Eddie and Shu. You can find me on social media if you want to talk puck. I am at the Radio Spiel. TJ, tell the folks where they can talk to you.
Yeah, hit me up on X, TJ_Shallot. That's CHILLOT. It's like chill out, no you. So chill OT, as you like to put it. That's a good one. But hit me up on X. Let's chat.
Very good. If you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, there is a Locked On NHL Team Pod and YouTube show for you. We have one for every NHL team, and this show, Locked On NHL Game Night, will be here for you each and every night of the regular season and the playoffs, which I'm extremely excited about, wrapping up the night in the NHL. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show if you're watching on YouTube. We want to see your thoughts on tonight's games in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts on the playoff format, plus the concerns about the possibility of a new record for most points to not make the playoffs. Just adding another piece of fuel to the fire in this conversation over this playoff format. Let us know what you think in the comments section. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For TJ Shallot, I'm Alex Wiederspiel. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.